Welcome to the Inside the Sales Playbook show, where on each and every episode we dive into the actual sales process, plays, and strategies that's actually working for successful sales teams today. No high-level overview, we actually get into the weeds of what some of the fastest growing and most successful sales teams are doing today to drive revenue and grow their business. And we're sponsored by SalesKit. SalesKit takes the guesswork out of scaling your sales with one easy-to-use system that makes it easier than ever for your sales team to actually access the sales knowledge that works. And we're sponsored by my book, that is. Honestly, it's probably the best book I've ever written, and that's Raise Your Standards, the definitive guide to building seven-figure sales. It's also the only book I've ever wrote. And you can get a free copy of the book to help grow your sales, whether you're an entrepreneur, a sales leader, or a sales contributor at www.getsaleskit.com. And just click on the top navigation bar. There's a title named book. Go in there. You can't miss it. Now, let's get into the show. Hey, this is your host, Mark Evans, and today I'm here with I think you could only describe him as just a really awesome guy, Mr. Glenn Ladd. Glenn, welcome to the show.
That's the best description of me. I think it's a little bit too over the top, if I'm being honest. But thanks for having me on, Mark.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. Well, Glenn is the founder of Rosendager Business and Sales Consulting. And Glenn, how about you give the listeners and viewers some context? So what is Rosendager Business and Sales Consulting, and how do you as the founder really help, obviously your company achieve their mission, but how do you help other companies that you work with and your clients achieve their mission?
Yeah. So first, Rosendager R&D, it stands for Research and Development. I've been in tech sales for about 5 years now, and with a lot of different companies. And one thing that I've noticed is everybody wants to grow and sell more. So, but the actual path to do that is a little bit more challenging. And, there's a little bit more research that needs to go in on the upfront. So I help companies who are either in startup mode, like pre-funding, all the way to, Series B, Series C, getting ready to IPO or to acquisition, to figure out what their next step is in terms of scaling their business. I'll sit down with the company, evaluate what their goals are, evaluate if they're ready to do that, and then give them a very clear path on how to do that, what hires need to be made, what are the steps that need to be laid out to build a foundation to grow, and then execution.
Awesome. So it sounds like for kind of each individual circumstance, there's like a different playbook that you're following or like a different plan that we're going to market with. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. I would say about 80% of it is generally pretty much follows the philosophy. But that other 20%, it kind of flips it on its head because it is really important. Like if you don't have training in place, or you don't have a pitch and a process in place that's been tested, or ops, like you've got to start at those foundational levels to be able to scale appropriately. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing things at the wall and making anecdotal decisions, and sometimes those are necessary to grow, and you've got to make educated decisions rather than fully empirical decisions. But that's what I'm here to do, is kind of help you to tease some of those things out, take some emotion out of it, and then just lend my experience as somebody who's been there before.
Yeah, always good to get some outside eyes on the business, on the sales team, on the sales process, as well as I'm sure your clients have seen too. So, totally. Glenn, of all the things you could have done in your life, right, and in your career, why the hell did you choose sales? What got you into it? Why are you still in sales?
Yeah, that's a really, I've got an interesting story, just like a lot of people in sales. So I was actually wanted to become a childhood therapist. Went into psychology with UT. I'll try to condense this story, but long story short, I ended up moving back to Midland, Texas, West Texas, because my dad got really sick. Okay. And I had a younger brother and a younger sister who were 8 and 10 years younger than me. Both of them were still in high school. And so I ended up having to take care of them for a long time. And like 1 year, which was kind of the benchmark, turned into 5 years pretty quickly. Yeah. And I had some tumultuous times. My dad passed away. My best friend passed away. And I was in Midland and doing really well in oil and gas. But I didn't want to be in oil and gas. That wasn't like how I drew it up. Yeah. And I was just ready to like make a change. So I just threw all my stuff in a car and drove down to Austin and got really, really fortunate. I drove Uber, I bar backed, and went from having
Wow.
a successful career to just being like, I need to figure this out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I ended up at Main Street Hub really because I needed health insurance to train for to like have that in place so that I could train to become a personal trainer. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
But in doing so, I was just surrounded by some amazing people, some amazing leaders, and I could just go down a list of people who helped me not just professionally, but also personally to kind of help me to put some of these personal experiences into perspective and help me to use that as kind of a fuel to move forward. So
Mm.
I realize that in sales and in sales management, like that's really what you're doing. You're helping people out. And those stories where you're helping businesses to either survive or to thrive, and then you're helping, people who are new salespeople to grow. That I mean, it was such a direct and captivating way for me to be able to give back and share lessons that I had learned along the way personally to help people to get to the next level. And so that's why sales has been really instrumental in my life. And I've just had the opportunity to, touch as many people as I can. And that's really, I mean, that's why I wanted to be a childhood therapist too.
Hmm.
So it all kind of comes back around like this is, again, this isn't how I drew it up, but it just seemed this was a great avenue to be able to accomplish the things that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, it really sounds like it. And I think I heard something recently that said, when you're committed, you get creative. And that sounds like that move to Midland and helping supporting your family and then coming back to Austin and doing whatever it took to break into kind of your goals and where you wanted to go. I think that's awesome. And that circuitous path brought you here today, which we're certainly fortunate for.
Yeah, for sure.
Very good.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think too, like I talk about this a lot with people I work with, but it's you get put in these situations that seem unfortunate, but end up being fortunate.
Yeah.
You're unfortunately fortunate that like I was 22, 23 when all this happened, and I had a lot of life experiences really early on that helped really solidify my character and help me get perspective on what's important, and being able to share that with people is it's great. It's
Yeah,
cool.
it's huge. It helps, I think, as a sales manager. And so let's get into that a little bit. Glenn, one of the things that people are talking about now more than ever before, especially the companies I'm interfacing with, and maybe you as well, is training and onboarding, right? That's a real hot topic right now. How do we reduce the amount of time it takes to ramp up a new rep, as well as how do we get them from a expense into an actual revenue generating machine? So let's talk a little bit about onboarding and training. What have you seen as some of the most successful practices either your clients are using or you've helped implement to make sure that people or sales reps are onboarding and training effectively?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think when you're onboarding and training, obviously you've got to have the product, the industry training. You've got to have the sales training or whatever department it is. I think it's really important though to sit down with new hires to help them develop their goals. A
Mm,
lot of people, especially entry level salespeople, don't have their goals defined, and even if they do, a lot of people don't have habits of kind of readjusting with their ambition and skill level.
yeah.
So really getting back to just the foundational level of like, what is this job, what is this career path going to do for you, and then help tie that into what they're doing for the company,
Yeah.
because that's what helps them on those tough days to keep dialing and to keep pushing forward. Another thing too, and I'm trying to give you like fundamental things that I
Yeah.
think get overlooked a little bit, but
Yeah.
just understanding why you're doing each
Mm,
step you're doing. Like, why are you in the ops? Like why are you recording everything in the CRM? And if people understand, well, oh, this isn't just me keeping notes for forecasting. This is also so that I can have accurate data to see where the best opportunities for me to grow are, and
mm,
figure out where those inefficiencies lie. And to, if you've got really good optics and metrics, you can take a look and say, well, I'm not calling at the most optimum time, and so I'm not getting the best connection rate, and because of that my numbers are lower, so I need to switch this and block this time off so that I can make dials at this time and then only set demos during this time.
Mm.
And then those little tweaks here and there really go a long way. But if you don't understand why you're doing something, generally people stop doing it. And
Yeah.
then you're having to constantly retrain, but really pushing forward, not just about the facts and the methods you're using, but like what's the why behind that? And so, yeah, I would say start there. I'm a big fan of starting with foundations and then building up, because if you can get a foundation down, then you can, start stacking things up and good habits and so on.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's such a key thing, especially for reps that are coming in and sales being their first professional sales job, or first professional job, I should say. And I really love how you take that time to stack up, make sure that you're understanding and they understand too, because I think that's critical, right? Having it very clear in their mind. Why are they here? Why did they choose a job in sales?
Sure.
It's not an easy career, right? As you know, when sometimes that phone can feel like it's 200 pounds, especially where I came from in Wisconsin, when it would be like cold and snowy and dark from like 9:30 a.m. until God knows when. So yeah, I totally recognize with that. How do you know, Glenn, when you're working with somebody, and maybe in your past when you had sales teams, how did you know when someone was truly ready to maybe go to that next step or make that next leap?
Yeah, so it's interesting you asked that. I was just asked to kind of put that down onto paper.
Mm.
And generally, I think that one thing that a lot of reps make early on is that they just assume that the leadership and management know that they want to advance,
Yeah.
which is not the case at all. So I make it really clear to the people I work with. In my one-on-ones, like, again, we go back to the why, like understanding their goals and what they want to do here. Get talking about career advancement. Like, if you work for me, I'm going to do everything I can to get you there. I'm going to give you a path to do so, but you have to speak up. And even if there's not an opportunity where we're working right now, that's okay. Like,
Mm.
my goal is to help you advance to where you need to go in your career. And so if that's here or someplace else, I want to help you do that. But opening those lines of communication early on, I would say that if people don't who work with me don't know that they need to tell me that they're interested in at least considering going into management or leadership, um, I would find it hard to think that they weren't listening. That's something I preach all the time, because you've got to raise your hand. If you raise your hand, then I can give you the path. The
Yeah.
first step to the path, you got to hit your quota. You got to do your job, and you're going to have to put in some extra work here and there. But once you start to do all the things right that the manager is telling you to do, which is, like we talked about earlier, managing their pipeline, managing your CRM, making sure that you're here on time, doing the little things, hitting your quota, making sure that you're taking the coaching and implementing that, and then coming back and asking for more.
Mhm.
Once you tighten all that stuff up, it should open up enough bandwidth that I can start to give you some managerial focused task, so you can see why I'm doing things and what I do on a day to day. So, as far as like identifying them, I want people to raise their hands, because you want people to be there.
Mhm.
And even if people are great with, working with other team members and things like that, they might not be used to the pressure, or might not be, apt to do that, and that's okay. But I really need somebody to raise your hand, and then we can start to evaluate, like, is this what you want to do? Here's what it entails. Are you prepared to do that? And the people who, know what is in front of them and want to do it, I think that they've got the hunger and the grit to be able to make it, and I can give you a path.
Yeah. What do you say to sales reps that are doing really well and maybe sales management isn't the right path for them? What kind of advice do you give to a rep? And so maybe if there's a rep watching or listening to this show and saying like, "Hey, I'm crushing it, but I don't know if I want to go into sales management." What does a career path look like? What advice would you give to someone who's in that situation, Glenn?
Yeah, for sure. That is such a good question, and I think too that there's almost kind of some shame in not
Yeah.
wanting to go into management, and that should not be the case at all. individual contributors are so important to every company,
Huge.
and it absolutely. I mean, it's the lifeblood. And if you are not, um, if you're doing really well as as an individual contributor, it doesn't always mean that you're going to have the best stuff for sales management too. And so, what I would recommend doing is giving them some other tools to say, like, hey, what do other types of sales look like? Are you in
Yeah.
transactional sales? What does it look like to go into account-based selling? What does it look like to go into enterprise sales? What does it look like to sell in a different industry? And give them some new tools and some new trainings to kind of help them level up while they're still in the role. So when those positions do open at that company, or elsewhere, that they're prepared to go into it and they know what it takes, because not all sales are the same. I've been doing this for 5-6 years now. I've seen
Mhm.
a lot of different kinds of sales, and what I've come to know is that every industry is different. People respond differently. Their level of proficiency with technology is going to be different. Like, there's
Mhm.
just different tasks, and in each one of those, you can gain some more tools to make you a more holistic salesperson. So I would just start with trying to break down what it is that they want to accomplish again.
Yeah.
Um, why are they considering going into management? Why did they become an individual contributor in the first place, and where they want to go? Like, again, try to just boil it down and make it as simple as possible for them, and then give them a path to accomplish their goals.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like that. That's really good. So let's move into and let's transition into, since this is the Inside the Sales Playbook show, podcast, YouTube video. Let's talk a little bit more about getting into a company's sales playbook. So let's start with this. What's one thing every sales team should be doing? And right now we're recording this. It's later September 2020. We're post COVID. But what's one thing every sales team should be doing right now as we start moving into the final quarter of 2020?
Yeah, I think it should be really looking beyond the horizon. Most industries out there are going to have some sort of seasonality coming into quarter four.
Mhm.
And you know, it, a lot of companies that I've been at, the culture and just kind of the atmosphere on the floor was that Q4 was not a good time to sell, especially in
Yeah.
December. I don't think that that's true at all. Like, you've got to start shifting, especially from a management perspective of, oh, well, people aren't in the office, to people have less things to do right now, or they're gearing up for Q4. Like, you've got to be able to shift those narratives to fit in with justifications and rebuttals that are going to come out in Q4. So I think that you've really got to start looking beyond the horizon. What do we need to do in October that's going to help us close deals in December, and then gear us up for the new year? So you've got to start making those adjustments, whatever your industry is.
Yeah.
Start digging into, if you have historical data, great. If not, there's probably some indicators that you could find by doing some research, looking at case studies, things like that.
Yeah. If a company was like, hey, quarter four is going to be our quarter, we've got to make it, or we're going to have, significant financial troubles, or hey, we're not going to have a business come 2021. What's one piece of advice you would give them, Glenn, to say, hey, over the next 90 days, I want you to focus. I want you to do fill in the blank.
Man, if we're not going to have a business in 90 days if we don't do something, I I mean, I think you've really got to rally and motivate your guys as much as possible behind a common goal. It's hard to kind of pinpoint that
Yeah.
without knowing what the business or company is. Um, I'm of the opinion that you should be transparent about those things
Well,
and not try to hide it, because if you do try to hide those that truth, the rumors are going to start, and you don't get to determine what the narrative is, but you can actually use that information to get your people to rally around it. Like,
yeah.
if I knew that my company that I was working for was in really serious financial hardship, and my actions directly helped the company stay afloat, I would be working really hard. And that transparency that you're giving them is trust.
Yeah.
You are showing, I trust you to know this, and to help us to achieve this goal. So I think that again, it's hard to give like really finite specifics, but I think you've got to be transparent about that and what the mission is, and not try to hide behind, you know, something that may not be true. Like, you're not helping yourself or
Yeah.
your employees by not informing them what the situation is.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that. So, Glenn, since we're talking about sales playbooks, what's a sales play? What's a sales methodology, let's call it, that needs to be in everyone's sales playbook?
A sales methodology that needs to be in every
Yeah,
person's
even or a
playbook.
tactic or a technique that you've seen that's worked really well with the companies you're working with or at past companies.
Yeah, well, something that I've been using a lot recently that I think works really well, and I mean, I, I know we've all experienced this, the automation that's happening in cold emails and cold LinkedIn requests and things like that. I think you have to put some personality in there.
Mm.
You have to put something in there, especially on the second follow up. Like, my second follow up email literally says, um, "Hey, Mark, I know you're probably busier than a beach ball at a Nickelback concert right now, but I wanted to float this back up to the top of your inbox. Let me know if you have some time to chat."
I know you're busier than a beach ball at a Nickelback concert. Now that is gold right there. That,
Yeah,
I gotta imagine that
take
gets
it.
you a lot of response.
It does, yeah. I've had people respond to it. I would say that has the highest response rate, and that's really what you're trying to do, is just
Yeah.
start the conversation, right? So I think that adding some personality, even if you've got some, some emails that are automated, like, people are tired of seeing the same automated message than a follow-up message that's just like a two-page pitch.
Yeah.
Like, I'm immediately going to A, tone you out, and B, you might just burn a bridge. Like,
Yeah.
I know that I know what's going on, and I think it used to be a lot more effective, but now it's becoming so prevalent and just kind of gross that I think that this is starting to I think we're going to start to see a shift here. Maybe it comes back around full circle, but I just don't see those working anymore without putting in some sort of personality, or putting in some sort of psychographics where you're actually showing and demonstrating that you have really done research on the person, really done research on the company. So I would say that right now is a shift that needs to be made from what is the majority of the messages that are going out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I hope that with 2020 out goes the like initial LinkedIn connection of, hey, I see we have a lot of mutual contacts. And then as soon as I click accept, like 6 minutes later, I get this 3-page, here's why you should do business with my company.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And I can't imagine people are actually respond to that, but I've been surprised before. So what should every entrepreneur, let's take a step and act as if you're coaching an entrepreneur, the founder, maybe a CEO of an organization. What should every CEO, leader, founder be doing right now to support and to help grow their sales team?
Yeah, it's again, I don't think that there's a silver bullet to that either, and things that everybody should do. But one thing that I think that is gets escaped quite often on sales is that they just don't fully understand. Like, a lot of CEOs, especially if you're coming from the product side or something like that, they do not fully understand the level of action that needs to go into it, and how difficult things are right now. Especially, I just got out of a role where I was in commercial real estate technology, and selling into commercial real estate is difficult right now because
Yeah.
people are cutting costs rather than beefing things up. And so it's about having like a holistic view of, like, not just the product, because every CEO, you have to have belief in your product, and then
Yeah.
it does well, but you have to understand the industry culture, like how technically proficient are they in this, or anything that is guided towards what your product does for them. And then have some empathy on what it takes to sell to help solve some of the problems that are going on in the sales front. That might be from a product perspective, it might be from a pricing perspective, but you have to give your salespeople support right now, not just to help move things along, but also for morale.
Yeah.
Like if you start to lose your sales team or lose your sales leadership, it's going to be hard to. That is a type of churn that takes a long time to right the ship.
Mhm.
So I think that having a lot of empathy for your people, really working to understand what the problems are and having those conversations that aren't just surface level and allow people to speak. Now, those people might not be coming to you with the exact solutions, but they might be giving you those pearls of wisdom to help you figure out what the whole landscape of things are, so the adjustments you need to make. But right now, I mean, we're in the year of adaptability. You have
Yeah.
got to be able to adapt, and that goes for CEOs as well. It can't just be business as usual. And if you do it right, it's an opportunity. It's not a problem. Like you're creating, new channels. You're creating potentially new products, new revenue streams. But you can't sit back and just wait for the sales team to come up with the solution here.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I think you got to be active. You got to be involved because it is such a dynamic market. It is such a dynamic year. I totally agree with that. Well, that's a good point, I think, to transition to our final 5 here. So, Glenn, these are rapid fire questions. You just spit them out and I'll ask the question. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, Glenn, give me your favorite sales book.
Favorite sales book is Never Split the Difference or Addicted to the Process.
Yeah, I just listened to Never Split the Difference. That's really good. All right, give me a favorite sales-related movie.
Favorite sales-related movie? Oh, man, I don't really watch a whole lot of movies. I guess Wolf of Wall Street. I wouldn't really call it a sales movie, but it's a fun movie.
It is a fun movie. Yeah, I agree with that. What do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first got into sales all those years ago?
I wish I had known what the true value of products are. The products that you're selling, it might be a value product. It might be that it's the best in the industry. Like, I think that a lot of salespeople hone in on problems with the product rather than understanding the full breadth and focus of what the product is actually valuable for.
That's a good one. Best purchase of 2020 under $100.
Best purchase of 2020. Probably flights to Wisconsin to visit my girlfriend's family. But there's a great website out there. Check it out. Scott's Cheap Flights. They do domestic flights now, and I've been getting crazy deals on travel. So going out to see her family was awesome.
That's awesome. Back to my home state of Wisconsin. I love it. And your favorite social follow?
Favorite social follow? I mean, I'm a homer on this, but it's got to be Scott Leese. I just think he's putting out some great information right now. And what he's done this year with the Thursday night sales and all of the other, he's created so many different avenues and really just hasn't broken stride or broken a sweat either. It's just, talk about making adjustments. He's doing a really good job.
Awesome. Glenn, where can our listeners connect with you?
You can definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. I've got a little rose emoji, and then Glenn with 2 N's, Lad with 2 D's, on LinkedIn. You can also go to my website. It's roseanddagger, all spelled out, .co. But yeah, if you want to connect with me, definitely shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I'm super active on there and I respond to all the messages.
All right. Well, we'll make sure we put links to both of them. All right. That's Glenn Ladd with Rose and Dagger Business and Sales Consulting. Glenn, thanks so much for going inside the sales playbook with us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark.